What's going on, Lucky Gamers? Today we're going to be talking about Jay. This is going to be like a little bit of a guide to let y'all know exactly what's going on with this account, how I feel about him, and everything, right? Putting it in video format. So we know that Jay is a new 6-star beast male character that we got in 2.0, and honestly he opened up a lot of questions on the first night, and then the second night I was like, okay, I'm starting to warm up to the character. See what I'm saying? Now I feel like this character is actually really strong. Yes, it happened overnight. Now my character is still P0, right? We're still in free-to-play territory for the character. I know a lot of you are going to judge me, but he's level 30, R10, P0. Cube is still at the first amp, right? We're still in free-to-play territory or low spender, okay? So we don't have anything super crazy, and I have not switched around his resonance yet, which I will be doing, by the way, but I will wait until after we, you know, get our raid and all that stuff. I'm waiting, I'm being patient, okay? The character is kind of crazy with how much damage that he can get out, but it depends on the situation, right? His main issue, right, and this is not a bad issue, his main issue is that he doesn't want to go against an enemy that attacks once. And what do I mean? If there's one enemy and it just attacks one opponent, he does not like that. Now if you have 2 or 3 enemies that hits everybody or does multiple hits, then he loves that situation, right? Which, like, raid bosses usually hit everybody. When you look, they have side minions and everything like that, then he loves those situations because it gives him a lot more chances to counter, okay? And that's what you want more chances for him to counter. His main thing is that he wants to put burn stacks on himself, which his counter gives him that. He gets up to 35 stacks of burn, which he can use to his advantage either for the shield on his counter or for the damage dealt buff that he gives with his debuff, and also for his ult for the burn stacks that he applies to enemies. Okay, and he's able to use these burn stacks very well. They are able to damage him, but once he gets to, if he gets all the way down to 15% health, he will no longer take damage. And then also with him being less than 50%, he gets a 20% crit rate buff. So he has a lot going for himself, right? So the resonance that I have him built out in is going to be a crit resonance. He has a decent amount of crit. For those who were wondering, he's pretty much at 50%, 49.7. That's 50%. And then if he gets that 20% extra, he's at 70%. Let me take away my camera real quick so y'all can see. And then he also has a lot of damage bonus, 27.5%. He's sitting at like 171 with the crit damage. Not too crazy the crit damage, but his base damage is really high. He's able to get extra attack with the amount of burn stacks he has, with the 17% extra as well. Like, he really has a lot of base damage in him. And then if he is able to crit, then of course it'll just do more. But we're more worried about, of course, upping his attack for the shield, because you want that shield to last. You do want a nice size shield because that's what allows you to counter, right? So that's one of the things you are worrying about as well, because with the counter, that's how you get more burn stacks, and that's what you're cycling your kit around. Now, for a main DPS, Jay, let's talk about his teammates. His best teammate's going to be a Soldier. There is no other character that pairs with him in terms of DPS other than a Soldier that's going to be better. There are, of course, other options that you can use, but they won't be amazing. But you can just not have burn team, I guess, for some odd reason, and then just of course pair him with other characters like Kjorn Bloom or Gutsy In, or you know, something like that. But you know, that's kind of just mid. But we're gonna say a Solday because I was saying that if you're wanting to pull Jay, I would have hoped that you invested into the burn team and you would have gotten a Solday. Okay, that's just me. Now for this third slot, right, we're gonna put our buffer. So this is where you can have a buffer, but you want to make sure that they don't conflict with Jay, right? So Ann and Lee having a damage dealt buff that is from just a regular ability, is it going to work? This is where we need to use an array character. So it's going to be between Simowise and Gutsy In. I'm going to be so for real right here, right? Gutsy In is the safest pick. It's just Jay gets his health really low, but if you don't like playing in that risky low health territory, you want to use Gutsy In. Getien is able to put a reality debuff onto the enemies as well, which helps out in AoE situations. He has his channel, which helps spread the burn and everything like that, right? Really, really nice. But if you're wanting just pure, straight up, outright damage, you don't care about nothing else, bro, you do Sima-wise, because if you have P0 Sima-wise, if you're down to low health, you are able to get that big, juicy damage dealt buff, but you have to stay low, because to get the 40% buff to pretty much match Getien, you're gonna have to be at 20% health, which is just, again, really low. She does give a 15% crit rate buff with her main buff, but she also has a damage dealt buff on herself, which does conflict with Jay. So Sima-wise can give you the highest amount of damage, I guess, if you're liking to stay low, because then you have your counters that like you to be low as well. But it's not really, the only thing that makes her insane is if you get the P1, because it, like, you can get a higher amount. But other than that, I'm gonna pair Getien with them, because it's just a way easier and safer choice. Also, putting the AoE debuff for other characters who don't want to be low, right? It helps the whole team, because a Solde doesn't really want to be low health. There's no benefit that she gets to it at all. Okay, now let's talk about the healer, right? Now, a lot of you are thinking, well, I want my counter to do a lot of damage, so I want to keep Jay at a low health. I'm gonna tell you that it's a scam. And what do I mean by it's a scam? I mean that keeping Jay at a low health, while it does feel nice, ends up getting him killed. He can lower his health on his own, which is the same thing with Sima-wise. You're going to end up with 1% HP messing with Sima-wise if you're not careful. His shield, while it is decent, it's not the biggest shield, and enemies can just hit the crap out of you and remove that shield very quickly. Okay, if you're in harder content, having a character sitting at 20% health, and then that's also making sure that you guarantee you're getting the shield every single time, is just a very stressful way to play. Now, if you're doing easier content or modes that don't last that long, you can of course do that, but I'm talking about when we get to harder content, you just can't be that low, so you will need a healer. So I'm gonna talk about some other healers before I get into the one that I think is the best, because it's not really a free-to-play like way to go. Vila, being if you're wanting to focus just on Jay, can work, but she's not going to be the best fit. I don't care what anyone says or anyone says in my chat. The fact that she can purify sucks, because you want to keep burn stacks on Jay at all times. Removing the burn stacks just lowers his damage, it lowers the shields that he puts, and like, while sure you could just use a Vila like ult real quick and then do the buff, it's purifying the burn stacks, and it's just not the greatest situation. Trying to play around that just feels like you're using a handicap for yourself that you really don't have to do, right? Also, it's the fact that the counter, so for the Rusalka buff, it wants you to have higher higher star abilities. Jay's counter isn't necessarily it doesn't scale off of how many stars it has. The shield does. So the Rusalka buff will only work, you know, on his debuff ability, but like, that's not where all of his damage is coming from, right? So she's not really gonna, the only thing she's gonna do is give him crit rate and crit damage, and then that's pretty much it. Okay, her power burst is a stack thing, and he does multiple attacks in a turn, so it's not gonna be that great. Tooth Fairy can work way better than Vila, in the sense that you can just choose not to use the ult, because I mean, Vila's whole kit cycles around her ult. With Tooth Fairy, you can choose not to use the ult, and you can just have the passive baby teeth go, or you can just build Tooth Fairy with no crit and then just use the ult there, and hope that the 14% crit doesn't you know, completely screw you over. But you know, you can just have Tooth Fairy just passively heal, which is fine. But the only thing is, if Jay gets really low after doing counters, Tooth Fairy, you'd have to hope that you have a big heal to get him back up to where he doesn't die. But you know, it's totally on you. You have other healers that can work and help you out. You have like Yeni if you're needing to do a big heal on Jay to help him out because he's really low. You can do a big burst heal. You also have the shield. It does do immunity and prevents you from getting burn stacks, but this is a shield and it could help him survive. Now the shield that you put on him doesn't allow him to counter. Only his shield will allow him to counter. Okay, but Yeni can also lower the damage the enemies do to just help Jay out in terms of survivability. And you could also do like Balloon Party to bring him back up from low if you're wanting to. Like, I'm giving some other free-to-play options. You can do, like I said, you can do Balloon Party. Med Pocket's a great one to work too because of the sturdiness on the heals, right? And then the debuff that Med Pocket has is going to also be helpful since Jay doesn't really need to use that much AP. He's a pretty AP-friendly character, honestly. But yeah, right? So all of the healers that don't have Purify really work well with him, but I'm gonna say the best person to pair with him is going to be Kakanya, because now of course my Kakanya is God Kakanya, and I'm fully accepting that, but her buff that she gives is an attack buff, which directly helps Jay in terms of allowing him to have a bigger shield, better base damage, and then the way that her heals work with the empathy, as Jay is getting hit, he's getting hit harder. Yes, the heals are going to be large, they're going to be huge, but it just works in favor of him because as the whole team's getting attacked, you're getting healed with the empathy, then you're pulsing out gen damage, and then Jay's doing the counter, right? And then the only thing that you have to do with Kakanya while you're using her skills with her is just dump her empathy once you max that out, right? And then you just shoot your ult at the boss, and then everyone does damage. But this works out the best because the attack buff that you get can go up to like 600, I think, with max empathy at P0. Go up to 600. Of course, mine goes up a little higher. Now, if you're at P0 for her and you do like the R15 and resonance change and everything like that, you could probably get up to like 700, I believe, with her buff, which is a huge buff for Jay. Of course, if you have higher, then you can do more. Actually, I think it gets up to, I think it's like 6, yeah, something like that. Anyways, let's go ahead and show the character off. Okay, so the way that you start off in battle, if you're using him as a DPS, right, you're just gonna want to just use his counter. So we're gonna go ahead and just buff his attack, open up and gets in counter. Now this Druvis reflects 50% of the damage that we do to her back at us, so Jay's going to be losing a lot more health than usual, so I don't want you thinking he actually loses that much health, but it does help because of course with him getting low he just does more damage. But you can see his damage starts off very low at the start, but it starts to ramp up, and that's the type of character he is. And with 1 AP we're able to do all of these multiple attacks. And for those who are asking in the back, yes, this is counted as follow-ups that work with 37, if you're wondering. It does work with 37. Alright, so we're going to reshuffle so we can make sure to reapply the shield, because, you know, he and a couple other characters missed out on it. But we have 35 stacks of burn. So what are we going to do with that? We're going to make sure to get that buff, right? So we're going to hit the debuff for the crit. We'll do the 50% buff. We're going to get rid of this enemy because I don't want to do too many follow-up attacks because I might die. And then we'll do the counter. Alright, so let's do the 40% damage dealt buff. That also applies to 15% reality debuff. And then we have a Soul Days 25% crit defense debuff, and then also 15% reality debuff that stacks with it. So you can see here he's did 11.5 crit with no no elemental advantage. And now we're gonna start doing our counters. And you see this damage is just ramping up with him being low. It's pretty nice. A Soul Day is helping in the background. A Soul Day is gonna hit hard because mine is portrait, but just try to ignore it. We're gonna buff him back up with attack. We still have our shields, so we can kind of relax there. But what we'll do is just buff somebody else. That way we can, wait, hold on. Reapply buff to him. I'm just using it twice. Let's see. We'll go ahead and try to get rid of the enemies. Actually, what we can do is we can use some AP from Gutsien. I haven't really used any. I'll just use a little bit of Isolde. I was trying to avoid using everyone else's AP, but it's fine. Just refresh the debuffs. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to hit with this. Alright, we still get the counters. He might die here because I didn't shield up. But it's fine. Okay, so we still have the counter. We're going to double up on it because they're about to do a couple attacks. And let's hit the debuff. Double up on that shield. Actually, I want him to ult, so I'm going to do a little something. Here we go. And then let's go ahead and we'll just go without Getien's domain. We'll be fine. He'll still do quite a bit of damage. We'll have the rousing morale buff. And you can see this damage is going up. And this is from just one cast. Right? This is why I say that he actually has a lot, and as enemies have just more attacks, this damage just kind of goes up. It's really insane. So we can look at the empathy from our Picanha. Don't really have that crazy of empathy. So go up. We'll use this shield just in case. Actually, what we're gonna do is we're gonna refresh so that we can use our damage dealt buff, right? We didn't get it. Well, darn it. I was gonna try to refresh to get the damage dealt buff, but we didn't get it. We should be fine though. Should be fine. You can see Jay's ult. Alright, so this will do a lot of damage from Isolde, but hopefully it doesn't kill the boss, but it will give us rousing morale. Okay, good. And so we're gonna apply all our burn stacks to the enemy. We did not crit, but we did 19,000. So unfortunately, we got way less damage than we wanted. And that's the thing with not having a crit support. You will crit a lot less. I mean, 70% is not perfect, so you're gonna miss those crits. So that's where, you know, you kind of make your decisions, but he's still fine. Like, we're at round 5. We're clearing this out. And we got it. Be a little bit of a support, but all in all, I like the character. I think he is a really strong character. I think his strong suits is going to be AoE situations, again sitting with burn, any reality damage situations, but his cons, I would say, is that the counter, the burn section you need to get on him, and the counter does not work well with just one enemy. He just doesn't counter enough unless the enemy does AoE attacks. You need to at least get 3 or 4 attacks to get up to a decent amount of burn. And if he doesn't have that, then his shields get weaker. His ult doesn't do as much damage, right? So, of course, you want perfect situations with AoE. So raids, like Limbo with a lot of enemies, if he's the main DPS. Roguelike mode, he'll excel in. But like something like a Marsh Creation probably wouldn't be his best bet. But, you know, that's just that. But hopefully you guys found this video good for you. I want to make sure that everybody understands Joe. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. You lucky gamers, have a good one. Lucky Lux out.